Good evening. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the last video where we had to take a walk into the farm, trying to get ourselves abreast with what we ought to do a day before the arrival of our day-old chicks. Well, I hope you learned something from that video. Like I said, do try to comment. Feel free to share your ideas and let's see how we can raise healthy birds together. My name is Ibiyamba Ebita David, the MD Elders Agro Services. It's nice meeting you this evening. It's still the evening before the arrival of my day-old chicks, meaning my day-old chicks will be arriving the farm tomorrow morning, and by the grace of God, I'll be taking stock of them, 300 in number, and then work starts. That's how I put it. Now, I know many of us are worried. Yes, everyone started 2020 bright. We had our dreams, we had our plans, we had so many things we looked up to. But well, the global pandemic caused by coronavirus, COVID-19, has come. And whether we like it or not, things won't be the same any longer. Some jobs are going to let people off. Even the jobs that still have people in it or employees in it would have to settle down to take pay cuts. And so the question comes into mind, can I become an entrepreneur? Can I stand on my own? To be sincere, if you want to ask me, yes you can. Because right now, we ain't sure of anything that is happening in this country again. And so I chose to have this heart-to-heart talk this evening with you, my dear listener. I'm interested in you. I just need one person who is watching this video at this point in time. You see, especially when it has to do with animal husbandry. Being an entrepreneur in the agricultural sector, I won't tell you lies, is quite taxing. It's taxing because it involves a lot of things. Take for instance, if you're a poultry farmer like I am, you would understand that there were times when you were told things won't work out the way it is working at the moment. I was told the business is risky. I was told I would fail. The cost of feed, you have to feed them, a lot of things. In fact, the most, I call it negative thing that is always said about the poultry business is that they would always die. Normal. That's how I take it. In fact, a friend told me, do you know how risky the poultry business is? And I answered her, I said, well, if in trying to get the word fail, we said fail means first attempt in learning, then please, if you're talking about a business being risky, to me, it's just rising independently in securing keen yield. Rising independently in securing keen yield. The keen is K-E-E-N. And what do we talk about? Someone who is keen, someone who is sharp-shooted, or sharp-witted, someone who is clever. So if you look at it, I'm trying to rise independently in securing a clever yield in every business I lay my hands in, especially in the aspect of poultry farming. And in the broiler section, as the case may be, it is important that no matter how risky the business is, I should always remember to rise independently in securing a very clever yield in returns as regards raising poultry pets. We in Elders Agro Services, we are all about that. Now, what do we have for someone who wants to start a poultry farm? The first thing I should tell you is that you should have the interest. If you don't have a deep-rooted interest in animal husbandry, don't venture into poultry business. You need to have the interest. You must take it a pleasure in caring for birds, not minding how dirty or the odor of the pen is. If you lack interest, challenges will send you off the business. And that's when those who told you that the business is risky, that it has one thing or the other, fine, they win. If you're a die-hearted fan of poultry farming like I am, then I think you've overcome that. The second one is there should be some form of capital. You should have a land, you should have money to buy equipment. But I always tell people, go small, start small. Don't stress yourself too much. You start from 50, from there you get to 70, and then to 100, then to 120, 150, and before you know, 1,000 is even too small. I started with 50, and today, by the grace of God, I'm getting to 100. In this business of ours, there are certain things we need to understand. Well, first and foremost, we need to seek God's help. A poultry farmer needs to pray. Forget about it. Brother, sister, we need to pray. Talk to God. Many of us pray to God for so many things. Even before an interview, going to get a job, you pray. So, as a poultry farmer, you're expecting your birds or your birds are arriving. Seek God's help. Pray. Let Him give you the direction. Let Him give you the wisdom. Well, for some of us who are Muslims, Allah is there. Pray. Seek help. I call it the divine help. It's important. When my birds come, I take some time and I pray over them. I pray over the business and I ask God to direct, because even the Bible says that wisdom is profitable to direct. That direction comes from God. Well, the next thing is, aside from having the interest, having every other thing, if you're working alone or you want someone to get yourself, you need to be observant. The life of a poultry farmer is the life of, how will I put it? I think in the crime world, when you have a police officer, it's about being a detective. You should be able to detect things that are happening in your poultry farm. Detect them. Don't leave things to chance. Be curious enough to find out what is happening. I am always observant. I'm in my poultry house. I spend a good quality time to see how they feed, to see how they are moving, to view everything, even their stool and everything. Be observant. Don't be a poultry farmer that just puts water and feed and then you walk away and then say, I'll come back in 6 hours' time. It doesn't work that way. You need to observe. Besides, just like we observe our children at home, to ensure if they're okay with the food, to ensure if they're sleeping right. This is our business. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to take care of your business and you need to do it well. Thirdly, you need to seek help and seek ideas from experts. I thought about seeking help, placing everything into God's hands. You also need to seek advice from other poultry farmers in the field. I do that. I go to different farms. I share ideas, how it happens in my own farm, and I expect to hear from them. In fact, I make it a point of duty that when I'm going to someone's farm, I always have a biro and my jotter, so that in case I get there, I should be able to learn something. You should be able to learn something. Well, an uncle of mine says this: sometimes there's no good news as good as a bad news. And he will always summarize it by saying, even if you cannot be a good example, try and be a bad example, because someone will still learn from the bad example. So even if I get to a poultry house and I see something that is not done properly, I would still learn. I always need to learn. So we need to share ideas. Move to other farms. Try to know what's happening in those farms. This is how my birds are doing. What about yours? That way, you learn. It helps you solve the mortality rate, and then you know what you're doing. Spread the word about your business. It has to do with marketing your birds. I'm sure you know that. Immediately my birds come into the farm, I start to update my customers, the general public, through social media that my birds have arrived, just like I'm doing right now. It's also a form of marketing. And so you need to spread your word around the neighborhood, about everywhere. People should know what you're doing. Don't just sit on the fence. It doesn't help. Now, because you're a poultry farmer, if you're starting new, and even if you're an existing poultry farmer like I am, then I think this is something, because you should take note of your expenditure and then try to curtail your spending. It's not everything you see you buy. Because you've gone to someone's poultry farm and you've seen the kind of feed that they're using, doesn't mean you should buy that immediately. It could be good. If you know it is not as urgent as you expect it to be. Don't rush. You can plan for it when you're bringing in new beds. Because I want you to know something. When you alter the feeding habit of one thing or the other of your birds while they grow, it also affects their growth. So you don't bring up immediate changes. You need to curtail your spending from your drugs. You don't just buy anything and just give. No. If you have a veterinary medicine doctor around your area, consult widely, but curtail your spending. Don't go to trying to impress anybody. If I should ask you a question, would your failure impress anybody? No. Failure is an orphan. Success has a lot of family members. Choose yours wisely. It helps. And so you should expect that when you're failing in business, you won't see people near you. A friend of mine will say in native pidgin language, "Waiting concern goats with aquarium." Nobody will come running to you when you're not doing well in your farm. So you need to be very careful about that. Now, what are those steps for you to do when you want to start a poultry business, whether broiler or layers? Well, in poultry business, there are two ways. It's either you're a broiler farmer or a layer farmer. And then for me, I deal on broilers. The layers aspect of poultry farming has to do with birds that produce egg, while we in the broiler section, we produce meat. That's just the simple fact of it. Now, what are those things? Well, the first thing is that the quality of your beds is very, very important. When you're trying to book for your beds, you need to know where you're getting it from, the source. We have a lot of fakes out there. I can't tell you. There are so many. So you need to get from a trusted supplier. Even if it is from a drug shop, there are some of us in our states and our localities, we have drug shops and the rest. If you're going to get from a drug shop, ask questions. Don't just go and say, I need 10 beds, I need 20 beds, I need 50 beds, and you just pay money and that's all. No. Ask questions. Where are these beds coming from? Which company? I said something in one of our videos. I deal on different beds, but I ensure that I get it from the right source. So please, the quality of the beds is important. The breed itself is important. Because no matter how you do it, even if you have low quality beds, if your feed is right, if you have good quality feed, no matter how you feed those beds, you still have problems. So, if you were able to save so much to invest in the poultry business, whether in layers or in broilers, I don't think you should take it to chance to get your monies into the wrong hands and then still suffer later. No, that's not wise. So please, be sure of the quality of your beds. Also be sure of the quality of your feed. In terms of feeding the broiler chicken, I just have 2 stages. Well, let me take 3 stages. The super starter, which I give to them for 2 weeks. The starter, which I give to them from the 3rd week to the 4th week. And then I introduce the finisher, which I use that till they are matured. I know of people who use the starter, the grower, or the finisher. Well, I actually don't have a formidable reason why some farmers do that. I've asked questions and they said it helps them grow better. But over the years, from 6 weeks, my beds weigh 3 kg and above. So I think it still works for me the way I do mine. And I'll still advise, if you're one of those farmers who use growers, if it's giving you the results you want, please, I'm okay with that. The end point of all we're talking about is raising healthy and good beds, big matured beds, because you know that your various customers definitely need to see the value of the money that they are paying for. Now, the location of your brooding house is also important. We have, let's say, 3 types of brooding houses. We have a brooding house that is still in the main house. You just use take for instance a plywood or something, and cover one section of the house, and then you brood them, and from there you keep shifting the space till they get big and matured. There's another one like you saw mine. It's in the same house, but it's divided. It's in a different section, and then you brood them in that particular section, and you, when they're after 2 weeks, you carry them to the main house where you now start partitioning them and then get them up to maturity. Like mine, I do that because I'm a commercial poultry farmer. I believe everyone here is. The essence is, if I brood my birds for 2 weeks, I can transfer them to the main house after 2 weeks and then put them up to speed till when they get like 5 weeks, and then from the 4th week getting into the 5th week, I can now send for new beds. And while these ones are being sold, I've already started the brooding of the next batch. We also have the third one, where you have a separate house, different from the main house of brooding. You have a brooding house, and then once you finish brooding them, you transfer them from where they are and you bring them into the main house. So those are the type of ones. So your location of your brooder is enough, but let your brooding house not be too far from the main house. And there's something I need to say, but it's going to be after the next point. Now, what's this brooding? Because I've been talking about brooding and brooding and brooding. For new farmers, poultry farmers, brooding is the process of raising day-old chicks to a point or level where they can support themselves within it without any assistance, much assistance from you. And that is a duration of 2 weeks, 14 days. That's what brooding is. Raising day-old chicks. These chicks have been taken off, and you're receiving them. Automatically, you've become their father and you've become their mother. So I share it in my own way. My brooding house becomes their mother. I become the father. And so I need to take care of them. I need to ensure that they are well fed, the water is clean, and everything that is needed. And so brooding these birds are very, very important. I have farmers who make mistakes of going to go and pick up birds that have been brooded for 2 weeks or 4 weeks from different people, and then they lack the knowledge of asking the particular drug chart or plan, or even knowing the breed of the birds, and you just carry 2 weeks birds or 4 weeks birds, as the case may be, take them to your farm, and then after a week you're like complaining the birds are not growing well and this and that and that. Well, they shouldn't, because you took a risk. And while taking a risk, you should be sure of the risk you want to take. Like I said when I began, I said risk is rising independently in securing keen yield. And the keen there is being clever. You should be sure. You should be sharp-witted. And so you don't just go picking birds anyhow. For me, I brood my birds and take them to the matured stage. So I'm sure of what I do. So because of the fact that you're bringing day-old chicks, you've automatically, like I said, become their mother and father. And so you have to take the necessary steps to raise these birds properly. The essence of sorting is important, especially the kind of brooding house I have. I have the up layer and then I have the down layer. Like I said in the previous video when I was laying the curtains, I said I try to weigh all the birds, and I'll do a video when I bring them tomorrow. You'll see how I weigh all the birds. When I weigh all of them individually, I have them on a weight category section, like from 34 to 39, and then from 40 to 43. And then I place them differently. When I do that, it helps the birds that are small in weight to pick up and increase in size, because they're all of the weight class. And those who are 40 and above would also be on the same level, and they also pick up and try to go higher. The essence is, if I brood all birds together, you definitely have those ones who are bigger, trying to like outwit the smaller ones, and then you won't have uniformity in growth. Yes, I'll be weighing my beds individually. I know someone is trying to ask, how will you weigh 300 beds? This stress coming from the road, well, like I said, is risky, but it's worth it. It's work for me. If you have 1,000 beds, you have different staffs, get different skills, and weigh them. It gives you an idea on how they grow. Besides, do you know your consumers like big beds? And when you weigh them, it helps in your marketing. Think about that. That would help. Also, like I said, you should also have fumigated your farm. It's important that you should have fumigated your farm. You should have done that before bringing your day-old chicks to the farm. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't have fumigated them, because you should have fumigated your farm at least 7 days before their arrival, and then you disinfect like 2 or 3 days before their arrival. Disinfecting means just using Dettol, Izal, and then disinfect also the drinkers and the feeders. When I wash them with normal detergents, mild, I don't put so much detergent in it, mildly. In rinsing them, I put disinfectant and disinfect them. The doormat, the deep, every time I do it spiritually. You see, the issue I have is most farmers are not observant. Most of the times when I get to people's farms and they tell me, oh, my farm is like this, I'm sorry, my birds are not behaving normal, I ask them, when it started, where were you? They said, no, they were fine the day before and today. I said, no, don't say it that way. You were not observant. How many times or how many hours in a day? I want to ask this question as a poultry farmer. How many hours in a day have you spent time in your farm? How many hours of the day are you available in your farm? I stay in mine for a very good time, most especially in the evenings. Why? Because to me, I feel they eat well in the evening. So I watch them, I monitor them. I ensure that I try to have a good grasp as regards observing the birds in my custody. Take for instance, if you're a teacher and you have students under you, won't you be observant on how they progress? If a parent comes to ask you questions about their child, which they've kept in your custody, you should be able to give a good report. And once you do that, it shows you're observant. Now that's you as a teacher doing that which you're expected to do, because it's expected of you. So let's come home. On this your side hustle as a poultry farmer, what's stopping you from being observant? The other, why did you do it in the first place? If it's for the business, to make the money, no pain, no gain. I tell friends of mine, do not hide the rank of the general. Rather, envy the scars that got him the rank. Don't just admire the rank. He labored for it. And he was observant to take note of little details, because little details matter, especially in the poultry aspect. So you need to observe them. You need to know what they are doing. You need to get them up. And, at the period of 2 weeks, I don't entertain visitors in my brooding house. I don't. It's just me and my staff, so that we are able to control the environment. The brooding aspect of broiler meat production is the most sensitive aspect of the broiler's life. They have 6 weeks, 8 and above. Some people take to 12. If your 2 weeks is not as solid as it ought to be, you have problems. In fact, you have those problems at the 4th and 5th week, as if it has never started from the 3rd week. In building a house like engineers, you always want to ensure that your foundation is strong and sure and rooted. So also is the 2 weeks in the broiler life. The first 2 weeks. So it's very, very important. Keep predators away. Try to block all loopholes so that rats, snakes, cats, and the rest, wild dogs, don't have access to your poultry house. I know there are plants you could plant around that scares snakes away. Do that. It's your business. You remember, some of you took a loan for it. taken a loan to do some few things in my farm. Some of you saved so much, denied yourselves of some good things in life like dresses, wristwatch, phones. So, please, let's be observant, people. Let's be. Your source of heat is very, very important. Lightning. The broiler beds need light 24 hours. Well, you expect that, like I said, they'll be able to handle themselves. So, you should be able to provide light for them. I don't know how it is in your area. I have a gen. Do I on the gen from morning to night? Please no. Like I said, control your spending. But there are good ways to control your spending. There are definitely good ways to control your spending. It's either you're using brooding machines intermittently. It's either you have the charcoal pot like you saw mine. If you have normal electricity, you can use it. Also, if you on your gen in the night, like mine, I have rechargeable lamps. Well, we're in the 21st century and so we've gone solar. You can install solar lights in your poultry house. So that while your charcoal pot is on in the night and NEPA, or the power holding company, I'm saying NEPA because we're used to that name. Up NEPA! If the power holding company in your own area, with the suppliers of electricity, maybe in the night, the light is off. Your rechargeable lamps can do the work. I don't like kerosene stoves because of its flames, carbon monoxide. It produces carbon monoxide, which you wouldn't want breathing issues, trust me. You wouldn't want that. So get those things sorted out. I don't like kerosene lamps, so I stopped using them. I know I started using them when I started at first, but I stopped using it because I know it wasn't giving me best. And I always had them having issues. But when I remove it, they start jumping around. You see, that's one thing about being observant in your farm, especially in this lighting aspect, when using the charcoal pot. You'll need a thermometer. But what if you don't have the money to afford a thermometer? Like I said, do you need to spend so much? No. The thermometer is important, fine. If you don't have it, if you have an Android phone, you can also use it to check your temperature in your brooding house. If you can't get any of that, then please be observant with your eyes. This is how it's done. If the heat is too much in the brooding house for the birds, you'll see them going away from the source of heat and they'll be panting. It means that you should take the light, maybe raise it up a little, or reduce the effect of the charcoal pot, or take it out a little for a while. Let them settle. If you see them clustering in different areas in packs on one another, which could lead to suffocation of the ones down, it means that they are cold. That means you need to increase the heat. And then if you see them moving up and down, jumping, being active, then you know everything is normal. That's the essence of being observant. You need to check your birds. You need to know what you're doing. Now, you need to have adequate feeders and drinkers. You should have feeders. It said that one feeder should be for 30 birds or 20 to 25 birds and like that. So you should know that those things are very, very important. So it's a good thing for us to note that you get those things ready and then it works well and fine based on what you want. Now, when your birds are 2 weeks and above, that's when you take them out of the brooder house and then you send them to the main house. The issue of everything is stated clearly and well. Don't bring your new birds and place them on sawdust. Please. The birds won't even be able to distinguish between their feed and the sawdust. And you start having respiratory problems, they block the throat and all that. You don't need that. That's why you need the carton or you need the cardboard paper, as the case may be. You don't need all that. Place your birds on the carton. After 2 weeks, you can now introduce wood shavings, not sawdust, wood shavings. Because if the feed drops on the wood shavings, they can easily pick. I told you. And I've said in previous videos, these birds can be picky. So you don't need to have sawdust and then they start picking sawdust on it. When they go to drink water and they swallow it, it blocks the throat and then you have issues. They suffocate and all that. No, please. I wish everybody well, and I wouldn't want to have you sink in so much money to try to better yourself as an entrepreneur, to seek good income for yourself, to provide for yourself and for your family, and then little mistakes like this become a problem, and then you're regretting why you started a poultry business. No, that's not what I want. You should be able to provide warmth and comfort. Well, and when you spread these wood shavings, please try to disinfect them. I know we're in the rainy season here, over here in Calabar, Cross River State, the southern part of Nigeria, West Africa, for some of us who are watching outside Nigeria. If you have your wood shavings, please disinfect them. If you can spread them outside, disinfect them. If the sunlight can touch them,